Good afternoon, everybody. It's another beautiful day here aboard the great ship, the Space Show. I am your host, Lieutenant Commander Rebecca Frost, joined by Admiral Kerry Jackson and Commander Robert Neal. Hello, fellas. How are we doing today?
All right. Ready to talk some Star Trek.
So excited to talk about Star Trek. Before we dive on into Star Trek, I do want to take a quick second and just say thank you to everybody who listens to the show and has really nice things to say about the show. Recently, y'all have been coming out of the woodwork to let me know that you listen to the show and you really like the show, and I am like blindsided every time. I can count on less than 4 fingers how many negative comments I've received about the show, and we're on episode like 34. So just thank you guys, making this all worth it.
Well, see, I knew our numbers would pop right up as soon as we finished the animated series. I knew it would just jump right up.
Well, and the feedback I've been getting is there are so many people who are like so happy to be listening along because they don't necessarily want to rewatch the shows, but they enjoy following along with us on our journey.
I'm now caught in one of my own devices because on the radio show, I have this woman who is a super fan of Real Housewives of Salt Lake, and our slug line is, she watches so that we don't have to. And now here I am. I'm caught in my own trap.
Watching so that you don't have to. But I'm very much like, please watch the original series. I'm such a sucker for the original series. And I just
and real quick, speaking of the original series, let's all raise a glass to William O'Connell. He was the Andorian that stabbed Kirk in the original series. He died today. He was 94. And he was in a lot of stuff. He was in shows like you wouldn't believe. Lucy Show, Munsters, Batman, Bonanza, Outer Limits, My Three Sons, Dennis the Menace, Twilight Zone, Peter Gunn. He was in a lot of stuff. But Journey to Babel was the episode that he was in, where he was Theliv, the duplicitous Orion agent, disguised as an Andorian ambassador.
Mm-hmm. What is that? Is that the third season?
Season 2.
Season 2.
Mm-hmm.
All right,
so there you go.
The cats are at it again. Sorry. Okay, back to Star Trek again.
Yes.
Thank you so much, everybody. Please, if you just leave a nice comment or drop me a nice message. I really love to hear your experience with Star Trek and the Space Show, and that's every time I see a Star Trek fan out in the wild, I just want to be like, can we talk, please, can we talk? I never do. Especially that girl at the grocery store who asked if I like Star Trek because I was wearing my Ritos sweatshirt, and I should have spread the good word. Anyway,
did you yell at her and say, "No, I don't know what you're talking about"?
Don't look at me. No.
This used to say Doritos, and the Dio fell off.
I'm just a fan of Doritos. No, I was wearing my Ritos sweatshirt, and she was like, "Are you a Star Trek fan?" And I was like, "Yes." And she said Lower Decks, and I just gave her a thumbs up because I was too scared to be like, I do a whole podcast about this. And then somebody on Twitter was like, "You're not selling an MLM. Like, you should talk about it." And I'm like, "Yeah, I guess."
I mean, it's like saying to a evangelical, could you tell me about Jesus? I mean, you should jump right in.
Yeah. If only I had more opportunities to do it. Like today, when we are going to talk about these season 2 episodes of The Next Generation: The Schizoid Man, Unnatural Selection, A Matter of Honor, The Measure of a Man, and The Dauphin. We've got some pretty heavy data episodes in this bunch.
That's what I began to notice with season 2. Is that it goes data heavy. It's like they realized Data and Worf are the 2 of the more interesting characters on the show. So let's do some things.
And that's so funny because Worf is, I think, one of the more interesting characters. And we get a whole episode about Klingon culture in this batch of episodes. Barely a Worf to be seen, which kind of sucks. So the first episode, The Schizoid Man, the dying antisocial scientist unintentionally comes upon the perfect vessel in which to preserve his intellect and arrogant personality. This is a classic original series episode. This reminded me so much of some of the original series episodes. Could I name them? No. But
you know the ones.
You know the ones.
You know the
You know
ones.
the ones with the vibes, right? People want to live forever, and there's a young, hot assistant who is there to also assist. So the Enterprise responds to a request for medical assistance from Dr. Ira Graves, considered by many to be the greatest living mind in the universe on molecular cybernetics, and he lives isolated on his home planet of Graves World. Graves World!
Graves World,
Robot
Graves
time.
World.
Excellent.
Steal your body. Excellent.
Cybernetics. Excellent. So Graves himself didn't request assistance, but his hot assistant, Kareen, she requested the Enterprise come and help. Graves is a crotchety old man who doesn't really like people, but he is now in the terminal stage of an illness, Darnay's disease. Meanwhile, Data... feeling a little insecure. Data's in this episode trying out some facial hair, and
he just stole his beard from Riker. That's the Riker beard.
grows
Come
a beard
on.
so that he can appear more mature and intellectual.
I thought we all had beards this season. I'm sorry.
I'm just trying to fit in. Meanwhile, while they are approaching Graves World, the Enterprise receives a distress signal from another ship, the USS Constantinople, which is ferrying settlers. Wesley thinks there are about 2012 souls on board. Riker suggests dropping a team on Grave World and then assisting the ferry ship. Pulaski wants to be on the ship to assist Constantinople, so Picard asks her to pick a replacement for Graves World. So she selects Dr. Salar to lead the way to help Ira. Salar goes with Worf, Data, and Deanna. Salar is a Vulcan, and Ira is fond of beautiful women, obviously, and hits on both Deanna and Salar. I love it when old men just do that, you know?
It's Leisure Suit Ira.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Meanwhile, the Enterprise has done what it needs to do in Constantinople and heads back to Graves World. Graves has taught Data's creator, Dr. Ninian Soong. Dr. Graves taught him everything he knows, and he fancies himself as Data's grandfather, and even tells Data to call him Grandpa. Do not like. And Dr. Salar gives Graves no more than a week to live. Dr. Graves feels pity for Data that he has no feelings and will hence never know any kind of emotion. Graves says that he's learned to download his knowledge and intellect into a computer, and Data tells Graves that he has an off switch, which renders him dead for all intents and purposes. Knowing his end is near, Graves transfers all of his knowledge and intellect into Data. Ira dies, and the Enterprise leaves Graves World with Kareen with the aim to leave her at the nearest starbase. But of course, our friend Data acting weird now, and becoming a cause of concern to everybody. He's hitting on Kareen. He's acting emotionally with a very long and poetic speech as Ira's eulogy. He whistles.
Oh, the eulogy was great.
Yeah.
To know him was to love him.
And to love him was to know him.
Very Tom Sawyer to crash your own funeral, you know?
Yeah.
He, let's see, hitting on women, whistling, chasing women. Ira had a thing for young women, but of course, what old man doesn't? And Data reacts angrily when Picard is friendly towards Kareen, acting a little jealous. He calls Picard an old man of limited intellect. And Deanna senses an intense burning jealousy, which is a human emotion, and she sensed it was coming from Data.
Mm-hmm. That's not right.
Cats are just like having
First clue.
I can't put my finger on it, but something is not right here.
Picard orders a full
I
diagnostic.
feel that something is not right.
Right? That's the thing. That's the thing about Deanna's job that I respect so heavily that we could never have in the year 2024, right? Where she's like, I feel like something's off. And now you would just get dismissed. Relying on your feelings. So Picard orders a full diagnostic, which of course reveals no issues. Diana suggests a psychiatric evaluation.
Aha.
The test After the test, Deanna reports to Picard that Data has a split personality disorder. He has two personalities, a dominant and a recessive, and the dominant personality is unstable. Brilliant, but vain and prone to irrationality. The dominant hates any authority figure, including Picard. I feel like I'm just reading off a list of my own personality traits. The dominant personality is growing and will soon gobble up the recessive, the Data that they all know.
Oh, noes.
Oh no! So how are they going to get out of this one? Meanwhile, Data admits to Kareen that it is indeed Ira inside of Data's body.
It's me.
Psst.
Don't tell anybody.
You'd be amazed what I can do in this thing.
He has switched off Data and downloaded himself into Data's body. Kareen tells Ira that she doesn't love him. Data was gripping Kareen's hand and squeezes it very tightly and hurts her. Meanwhile, Picard has figured it out that Ira has downloaded himself into Data's body. Picard confronts Ira and tells him how he has fractured Kareen's hand and will hurt more people, and he hurt even more people in engineering. Picard convinces Ira that he does not have the right to kill Data and occupies his body. He also tells Ira that in Data's body, sooner or later, he will end up killing more people. Ira is finally convinced after he hits and injures Picard. The greatest act of stage combat probably ever from Sir Patrick Stewart, because Data punches. I can't remember if he punches or he slaps him, but Picard does like a full 360 and throws himself against the wall to the ground. Again, very classic original series stuff. I love to see it.
Acting.
Ira leaves Data's body. Kareen discovers that Ira is in the ship's computer where there is knowledge but no consciousness. I'm sure it's fine.
Yeah, what could go wrong?
What could possibly go wrong?
Oh, the Enterprise D goes around hitting on young women, that's all.
The Enterprise goes around killing more engineers. This is the only Next Generation episode where a multi-person landing party is not made up of at least one member that is 100% human. This landing party consisted of Data, Troy, Selar, and Worf. So no humans at all in a landing party.
About time.
And the DEI bill.
Yeah.
I was just trying to find ways to connect politics to...
Good for you.
Well done.
It's going to be a long year, you guys.
Yes.
Moving on to the next horrific episode, Unnatural Selection. Enhanced DNA developments trigger an epidemic of rapid aging caught among its victims, Dr. Pulaski. And some really good interactions between Picard and Pulaski here. There's one in particular I really love that I'll bring up when it comes around. Picard is preparing to write Pulaski's evaluation as Chief Medical Officer of the Enterprise. He believes that she is very dedicated to her profession, but her passion could potentially interfere with her judgment during critical situations. Interesting. I don't believe we've seen that really happen before. I mean, we've only had her around for 6 episodes, but yeah. I don't think there's I think in every instance we've seen her, she's been very cool, calm, and collected, even in the face of
as the season goes on, she'll start to get more vocal and
about
almost,
things,
almost insurrection-y. Very close.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, let's face it, though. Bones, though, did the same thing. Bones was like, we're not doing this. So, so it's a little in that vein. I was just trying to think, is she less or more so than Beverly? Because Beverly stood her ground, even in the first season, a few times, just like, that's not going to happen, or I'm not going to do that. So, it's kind of like Pulaski was put in an interesting position of you're replacing a character that we've already had a year to get used to, and now she's just gone. And you're the new kid on the block, and we're not sure how we feel about you. You've already shown that you're, not Data's best friend.
Yeah.
It been elementary dear Data, and we're still trying to get a feel for you. So it was interesting watching Picard go to Troy and go, "You spent more time with her." Well, yeah, she's the first person I told that I was pregnant, and she was helping me cope with things as a doctor. So yeah, I spent some time with her, and it's like. Yeah. It just seems like Picard wasn't trying to is not as chummy with her as he seems to be with the rest of the bridge crew. because they're coming up all the time, just like, hey, I got to move my console here.
Yeah,
and I'm here now.
I mean, Picard, he either has by now or will this season refer to Pulaski as that woman. You know,
you have to wonder. I don't want to assume Picard is this way, but I kind of wonder if this is very much in the same vein of thinking of like, well, we can't have a female president. She'll just set off the nukes with her next period. You know, like, is this the same kind of attitude? Probably not. Probably not. But you know, I'm not on the Starship Enterprise. I don't know what the rest of his interactions have been with her. So he's working on her evaluation. The Enterprise is on its way to Star Station India and receives a distress signal from the USS Lantry, a Federation supply ship. They arrive to find everyone on board dead of what appears to be old age. There is no damage to the ship and all systems seems functional. Everything looks normal. The Enterprise had to take remote control of the ship to activate their viewing screen to find out why no one was responding to their hails. They all died of natural causes, old age. So Picard thinks that's weird and activates a quarantine warning on the Lantry. Every member of the Lantry crew. Just gonna real quick pose a quick quarantine on this.
You know what's weird though is that ever since COVID, and now I'm rewatching Star Trek, my whole "why don't you just quarantine that" instinct goes off.
People's rights, Carrie.
You know, they're so quick to just go down on planets and beam back up. I know there's a filter in the transporter, but still, you know.
Yeah. What are they bringing back?
We don't get speech terms.
Yeah.
Everybody on the Lantry. Plague ship full of rats. Everybody on the Lantry had a physical about 8 weeks ago, and they were all found to be in perfect physical health. And the first officer was treated for Thelusian flu 5 days ago. They proceed to the Lantry's last port of call from 3 days ago, the Darwin Genetic Research Facility on Gagarin 4. Sometimes I look at all these words and I'm like, am I having a stroke trying to read all these space words?
Imagine being the actors that have to remember them.
The Darwin Genetic Research Facility, everybody who works there is also suffering from rapid aging. Dr. Sarah Kingsley has already declared a medical emergency, and she thinks that the Darwin facility was infected by the Lantry and says that they have no research in this area of disease propagation. Sarah argues that the children being bred on the Darwin station need to be evacuated as soon as possible, and the children represent the years of work at Darwin that have been kept in protective isolation, and they are showing no symptoms of the disease. Save the children. Pulaski wants to bring one of the children on board for examination, but Deanna says that Sarah's not telling the full truth. What a power. God, what a power to have. Picard finally agrees to beam one kid over under a protective force field. So Picard and Dr. Pulaski clash when she brings aboard one of the children from the station. Picard is very adamant that he cannot expose the crew to this, and Sarah is pushing Pulaski to beam up all of the kids. And Pulaski proposes taking the boy to a shuttlecraft outside of the Enterprise to study him in greater detail to rule out the threat of infection.
That's some COVID thinking there.
Your own little isolated tent. Pulaski insists that she will meet all of Picard's safety conditions and takes on the risk of infection herself, and Picard approves. To complete her examination, Pulaski takes the boy aboard the shuttlecraft to isolate him from the Enterprise. Data was piloting the shuttlecraft. Totally fine. Man's an android.
Of course.
And the boy was 12, but he looks like a mature man. So this boy is only 12 years old, but he looks like a man. And Deanna can sense that he is telepathic, the future of mankind, what the people on this Darwin Genetic Research Facility have been working on.
See, this bothered me because...
Does it bother you because of what we know?
Yes,
because
of the whole Khan thing as well. You know, going back to what we did know. I mean, the genetics was outlawed because of Khan, and then there's the things that are going to happen in the future in this show that we can't talk about yet because Rebecca hasn't seen them.
Yeah, no spoilers, please.
Yeah, we're not going to spoil anything, but I'm watching it going, don't we have some rules against what you're doing here? Didn't we cover this already?
And everybody just seems to have either forgotten or is okay with this stuff.
Kind of interesting that they didn't even bring it up.
Yeah.
And to be fair, it hadn't been created yet. In our timeline, it hasn't been created yet.
Yeah, I guess.
Outside of the con things.
That's true.
That's true. Well, what with the con thing? Yeah, what year was this episode?
Fix it? This was in 1988.
Oh, see, Con was in the 80s.
82. But they never said that. Did they say in Space Seed or in Wrath of Khan that they had outlawed genetic manipulation?
Yeah, that was talked about. That was one of the reasons that that Khan was on the ship was because genetic, all that stuff was outlawed. And I think by the time this episode was aired, it was canon. So this is what I'm trying to figure out. I don't know. Anyway,
this is good example of show Bible. Show Bible should be required for all shows, but to this day that's still something that we're not.
And you need a Star Trek nerd in the writer's room who can say this may not be in the Bible, but excuse me. You need him to be there to say excuse me.
It makes you think, like, what if Gene was around for this, right? Because Gene is no longer around for this. So I wonder if he had been there, if he could have said, hey, this is actually not a thing within this universe.
Anyway.
So who knows? But it's also during this argument between Picard and Dr. Pulaski where she was interrupting him with every sentence. And even I on my couch at home, and I'm like, damn, lady, let him finish a sentence. And Picard leaves the room with this banger of a line. Doctor, God knows I'm not one to discourage input, but I would appreciate it if you'd let me finish my sentences once in a while. Boom! Doors whoosh close.
Yep.
Absolute mic drop of a line. But Pulaski gets hers. She catches the COVID and shows symptoms of rapid aging. She seems doomed to die of old age, but Picard might have a solution. The children are carriers of this disease, and Pulaski transports the child back to Darwin. Transporter Chief Miles O'Brien suggests that he can use the last known trace of the transport to beam back the person into their trace instead of materializing into their current body. So this is a wee bit of a deep dive into how the transporter works, right? How it has a copy of how you left, and they use that copy to bring you
to reassemble you. Yeah.
So he can beam the person back into their trace instead of materializing their current air quotes body. Since the traces, the original body, was uninfected, this is a way to ensure that Data and Pulaski are not infected as they are beamed back to the Enterprise. But like many doctors in Starfleet, the Enterprise doesn't have Pulaski's trace file as she has never used the transporter. Something about these doctors know not to trust the transporter.
They know what happens. They know how it works, and they're like,
they know it flies in the face of God.
I'm not playing. She definitely went to the Dr. McCoy school. Absolutely.
There's one professor at Starfleet Academy who teaches medical classes who was like, don't you ever dare get in the transporter. It will kill you.
This is not going to be on the test, but I'm here to tell you.
Starfleet doesn't want me to tell you this, but I'm going to tell you this.
Do you realize how fucked up that is? Oh, man.
So Pulaski and Data go down to Darwin Station, where we learn that the kids are genetically engineered with an aggressive immune system. Again, Carrie, I can't believe I didn't think of this. How are we genetically engineering these people when this is outlawed?
I was yelling Khan at the screen the whole time. And somebody else's character name, but that's
One of the crew of the Lantry was carrying the Thelusian flu when he visited Darwin, and upon analysis, they figured that the Thelusian flu triggered the antibody response, and the antibodies generated resulted in a side effect that altered the genetic makeup of humans. The process is irreversible. The children will survive, but everyone else on Darwin Station will die. Data beams back to the Enterprise. Since Picard doesn't have Pulaski's trace on file, he uses her original DNA to create a new trace at a molecular level. What is it? They go to her room and find like a hairbrush.
They find a hairbrush. Yeah.
The classic DNA grab
with a
of
follicle.
Hairbrush.
There's a follicle on this one. Yes. Get it to the lab. Get it.
Get it to O'Brien quickly.
Yes.
They initiate the transport. It works. They try the same thing on the rest of the Darwin crew, and the Enterprise returns to destroy the land tree.
Chief O'Brien, an absolute magician with the transporter.
Just a wizard with the transporter.
But there's a couple of things about this episode also, outside of O'Brien, which is great to see O'Brien, because isn't this like the first time we see him really doing something?
Yeah.
You know,
let me tell
we know where this is going.
Let me tell you, Chief O'Brien was a last-minute addition to the teleplay. Originally, the story featured a young engineering genius named Rena, whose beauty caused male colleagues to repeatedly experience pratfalls, which led to a romantic subplot with Geordie LaForge. Maurice Hurley found the character obnoxious and deleted her when he rewrote the teleplay, replacing her with calm Meanie's, until then, nameless character who was finally named and his personality expanded upon.
Yes. And he starts to get lines as the season goes along, and he gets even some funny lines.
Yes, but also we also get there's a question of like how did Pulaski wind up on the Enterprise out of the entire fleet of ships in Starfleet to become chief medical officer of the flagship of the Federation, and we find out she's pretty well known in medical circles because the doctor on Darwin was like, V.K. Pulaski, who wrote this thing, and Pulaski's like, yeah, that was a long time ago. I don't talk about that. And Picard's like, what?
Dog, you're famous. It's like, Rob, now's a perfect time for me to tell you about the one time I was at a Halloween party talking to some people, and I told them my name. And one of my other friends was like, oh, yeah, she's on Geekshow. And the person I was talking to said, oh, you're that Rebecca Frost? And I immediately turned into a corner and was like, please, God. So I know exactly what Dr. Catherine Pulaski was feeling in that moment.
But it was interesting because we had nothing else on her before hearing that somebody off the ship knows who she is.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, she's got some credentials. Because this doctor was like, I'm a little starstruck, really, when she found out it was that Catherine Pulaski.
And what I like about that is just little nibbles of here's who this person is. As you go, as the season series goes along, it's little nibbles. Here you go. This is what she's all about. But here's my next question. Yeah. Not to be that guy, but I will be that guy. If we can save our, this is what they were before we beamed them down, and they beam down to a planet and they break their leg. We always beam them to the med bay get fixed, to sick bay to get the broken leg fixed. Why can't we just beam them up and use the old and fix their leg? And doctors aren't necessary.
Carrie,
I think I have an answer for that.
It sounds like you're asking a lot of questions.
See, I'm being that guy.
Robert.
I have an answer for that.
But I can count on Robert.
The body is not there. There's a fraction or a break in a bone, but all the parts are still where they were when they left. There's been nothing new introduced to the system, not a virus, not a whatever. So you may have not brought it back in the right condition, but you didn't change externally. You didn't add an external influence into the body. I'm not saying it works perfect science.
There wasn't an addition of like a bacteria or a virus.
Correct. Or a virus.
Okay.
Right. So there's nothing to filter out. Science. All the parts that you left with come back. Just not in the right shape.
I don't know. We can make an old lady young again. Well, reasonably.
Oh, they had to find a hairbrush for. I mean, come on. You have to imagine having to go through that entire ship to find hairbrushes for every red shirt. Come on. Or I'm sorry,
that's true.
A gold shirt.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, anyway, I'm sorry. If you buy the premise, you buy the bit.
Right. It also took more than 20 takes. Oh, go on.
No. I was just going to say, I also liked it when they beamed the 12-year-old kid up, and this 24-year-old guy shows up. We're just like, beam it back. Just immediately. His immediate thing was just like, nope, get rid of it.
No.
It was like, it's a trick. Beam it back. And I'm just like, quick response there, Worf, but maybe slow your roll a little.
Yeah.
It also took more than 20 takes for Jonathan Frakes to correctly order Worf to initiate the quarantine transmitters on the Lantry and activate her marker beacons. After several failures, he alternated between swearing and laughing each time he botched a line.
To quote Harrison Ford, "You can write that dialogue, George, but you can't say it."
Literally, I had an issue reading the synopsis. I can't even imagine just being on the show. The next episode, Riker heavy and not Worf heavy. A matter of honor. When under an officer's exchange program, Riker serves aboard a Klingon ship whose aging captain seeks an unwarranted bloody retaliation for suspected Enterprise treachery. This is kind of a fun exchange student scenario. So the Federation promotes an officer exchange program, and Commander Riker decides to accept an assignment aboard a Klingon warship. There's a whole scene between Riker and Picard in the holodeck doing some kind of fun video game training where sometimes when I watch shows and movies, I think about being there in person as this thing is being filmed, and just Picard standing there like this with his arms out, delivering some pretty heavy dialogue. Like,
I was in the Royal Shakespeare Company, damn it.
And now I'm false. Now I'm pretending to shoot lasers out of my hands. So Riker talks to Worf about, serving on a Klingon warship, and Worf tells Riker that he's spent a lot of time studying his history because great lesson. I cannot wait to learn more about, Worf and the concept of nature versus nurture when it comes to Klingon culture.
Oh, yeah.
Worf tells Riker that the duties of the first officer in a Klingon ship is to assassinate the captain when he or she grows weak or unable to perform. The second officer will assassinate the first officer for the same reasons. And Worf gives Riker an omnidirectional emergency beacon just in case.
Yes.
As the first Federation officer to serve aboard a Klingon vessel, Pa, Riker has to gain the trust of his new shipmates, and particularly that of his irascible captain Kargan. Riker takes an oath to follow Kargan's order while he serves on the Pa. Clag, the second officer, does not trust Riker at all, and Riker beats up Clag when he challenges Riker's authority in front of everyone, and Clag has to agree to take orders from Riker.
And that's when Clag starts liking Riker. That's the beginning of a good friendship there.
Riker, he's so brave. Right. This episode really, for me, shows me that Riker is down to try anything. And not only is he down to try anything, he's down to try it happily. Like, the man doesn't have like an ounce of fear in him that I can see, right? Like, this is only season 2 Riker for me, so I don't know what's to come. But this episode really made me go, damn, Riker, he's down to clown. He's game for like anything. As part of this exchange program, the Enterprise welcomes aboard Ensign Mendon from the planet Benzar. It is a culture that is forever seeking to improve operational efficiency. Mendon discovers a bacterium attacking the integrity of the Pa ship's hull, and he searches for his own solution rather than reporting it. Also, Wesley, classic racist move. He greets Ensign Mendon as his old friend from when he was trying to get into the academy. And this ensign has to go, no.
It's not you?
That's not
Oh,
that's not
so
me.
all us Benzites look the same, right? Is that what you're saying?
Also, happy Black History Month, everybody.
My mom's calling.
Eventually, this same bacteria that he has discovered, Worf discovers on the Enterprise, and Data figures that this bacteria doubles in size every 15 minutes. Mendon admits that he found the bacteria on the Klingon ship but didn't report it as he is still analyzing it. Meanwhile, Vemka, a female on the Pa, declares her intention to have Riker. They're having this conversation over dinner where Riker, again, I was like, wow, man, so brave. He's eating Klingon food happily, right? And fitting in with the boys. And she threatens to have him in a biblical fashion, and you can see the look on Riker's face where he in Futurama where they're on the planet of the Amazonians, and they're about to be whatever, I can't remember what the phrase is, but the looks on their faces as they're like held hostage is like smiling and then horror and then smiling and then back to horror.
Yeah, I kind of got the feeling that was going to be a non-consensual relationship for Riker.
I mean,
I don't know.
Or was it?
I don't know.
It's Riker. I mean, it's Riker.
He's Riker. He's the Kirk of this show. He'll fuck anything.
You can see it in his wheels are turning about. How am I?
He will do anything, and then he gets upset when Deanna does. That's what bothers me the most about Riker.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
welcome to the world of double standards, you guys.
Exactly.
Glad to have you here finally.
Right.
Klag shares with Riker that his father was captured by Romulans and not allowed to die, which, if you are wizened in Klingon culture, not great, because the Klingons' purpose is to die with honor. He eventually escaped and now lives on the Klingon home planet awaiting a natural death, which is probably even worse than being held hostage by Romulans. Klag is bitter about this, as you can imagine. Back on the Enterprise, Data and Mendon figure that the bacteria can eat through certain compounds on the hull, and by this time, Pa would have a 12-centimeter hole in it. Picard changes course to find the Pa and warn them. When the bacteria is affecting the Klingon ship, Kargan believes the Enterprise is responsible and orders an attack on the Enterprise. The Pa has 8 hours before it loses hull integrity, and Riker is not able to explain the 2-minute scan the Enterprise did on the specific section of the Pa, which is now infected with bacteria at their last encounter, and he can't argue against Kargan because he is serving under Kargan, and there's a hierarchy of command. Klag convinces Kargan that Riker would not have come on board the Pa, knowing that the Enterprise is going to attack it, but Kargan is enraged when he finds the Enterprise is on an intercept course with them. Kargan wants Riker to reveal the weak spots of the Enterprise, but Riker refuses to break his oath to the Enterprise forever, and says he will die with a Pa with Kargan's crew instead. Mendon completes his analysis and tells Picard that the bacteria can be removed with a neutrino beam, lasers, and Picard hails the Pa, trying to relay this message, but Kargan has cloaked his ship and refuses to believe Riker that the Enterprise is there to help. Riker initiates the emergency beam that Worf gave him and hands it over to Kargan. Worf identifies the signal, beams over the person on those coordinates, and turns out to be Kargan. Whoopsie doodles. And then since Kargan is gone, Riker, first officer, assumes command of the Pa, delivers this great line that did things to me, where he sits in the chair and says, "I'm your captain now," and I on my couch am like, uh-oh. a little much. Riker calls off the attack and decloaks. The Enterprise returns Kargan and repairs the Pa. Kargan slaps Riker, sends him back to the Enterprise. Riker returns to the Enterprise with a great story. I personally just love episodes focused on Riker, but that's my own personal bias. Some bits of trivia. Brian Thompson was hired for his role, then let go without notice before it was filmed. When he sought out a reason why, he was told that he was too large to fit into the costume Christopher Lloyd had worn for Star Trek III, The Search for Spock. He quickly volunteered to make any necessary alterations himself. And he was the one who played Klag.
He wanted the part that badly. Wow, good for him.
Yeah.
All right.
Wesley mistakes Ensign Mendon for Mordock, the Benzite that he met during season 1.
Yep.
But both are played by the same actor, John Pooch. So he's not totally off base.
Not totally off base. All right. Okay.
Wesley.
Next up,
but this shows you
Man.
also that Riker. But hang on. But this also shows that Riker is that guy that's like he's looking for the next great bar story or the next great 10 forward story. Because he's like, so did I tell you about that time that I served on a Klingon ship as first officer? And he swings his leg over the chair and like, let me tell you.
There was a Twitter thread that I was reading where people were talking about their favorite Riker, and Lower Decks Riker came up so much.
Yes.
And I think that's because Lower Decks Riker is so intense. And I think he's kind of like a great representation of what Jonathan Frakes really wanted Riker to be, right? Of just this like intense, gung-ho, down to clown for anything type of guy.
I mean, that's the way Roddenberry explained the character to him. He says, you're essentially your Captain Kirk on this show. You are that character. You know, just think about that. That's how you play it. And so that's how Frakes approached it.
That's probably why I love him so much. But another data-heavy episode, The Measure of a Man. A courtroom episode, you guys!
Rebecca loves her courtroom episodes.
It's Ellie Lott in space.
Yes.
When Data resigns his commission rather than be dismantled for examination by an inadequately skilled scientist, a formal hearing is convened to determine whether Data is considered property without rights or a sentient being. You guys know my stance on robots wanting to be humans, right?
No, but let's hear it. Let's hear it. We know, but
no, you don't. You're not programmed for it. You don't have the capacity to understand human feelings.
And humans are the worst.
Humans are the worst.
Yes.
So, okay, our friends are playing poker, and Data's trying to learn how to play poker, and is learning to understand that there are intricacies of poker. It's so much more than the mathematical, card counting, like probabilities and statistics. Riker teaches him all about the poker face and bluffing, right? And
Lady Gaga was right.
And meanwhile, Picard runs into an old friend, Captain Philippa Louvois, who established a new JAG office at the base. And I know JAG is like a real term. Yes, Robert. You have.
So many things in this episode. And we'll start here.
okay.
So I haven't watched this episode probably since it aired 11 million years ago. And she comes up, started open a new JAG office. And I'm like, I literally spent 5 minutes pouring through websites going, is Starfleet a military organization? Just to prove, no, they're not. So they shouldn't have a JAG office. They should have an advocate's office, sure. But it shouldn't be a JAG office because JAG, what today I learned, JAG was set up by George Washington originally for military tribunals. Like it has a history in the military, and Starfleet swears whenever they go somewhere, we're not a military organization. We are here for exploring and defense and to help, keep people safe, but we're not a military organization. And, I'm just like, nope. So she said that, it was kind of like, okay, fine. She can be a JAG.
See, that's the thing, though, is that Starfleet may say they're not a military organization, but their roots are definitely in it. I mean,
well, I think
everything about the way they operate is military. I mean,
well, they've also changed. Okay, so Rebecca, plug your ears for a second. We know for a fact from other shows / movies that the which group? Security group used to be a more military organization, the Makos. And we've seen that in Enterprise before. They were like, we're not really going to do the whole military thing. And in Kelvin Universe Star Trek Beyond, where Idris Elba's ship had a group of Makos, and they're like, we're supposed to be peacemakers or peacekeepers now, or just peaceful now. That's what it was. We can't do that. That's not what we're wired for. Thanks, Rebecca.
Well, okay, so philosophically, they're not a military, but I mean,
yes,
the way they operate, the nuts and bolts
alone.
Structure. That's the word I'm looking for. The structure is definitely military because there is a lot of people think
that had to do with Roddenberry. And his military service.
He was a pilot. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're thinking that he set it up that way because it was a known structure for him. But he's like, but we don't want them to be the Klingons, for lack of a better way of putting it. Just aggression all the time.
So one of the pieces of trivia I have for this episode kind of semi talks about this. Gene Roddenberry disliked the premise of this episode, arguing that there would be no lawyers in the 24th century. Sorry, Mike. writer Melinda M. Snodgrass convinced him that even if there were no crime, people would still have to settle civil disputes, negotiate contracts, etc.
Yes,
Roddenberry relented, and the production of the episode went forward.
And you had jury trial lawyer episodes in the original series. Don't you forget how many times that happened?
That was 78 years ago.
All right, so Captain Philippa once prosecuted Picard unsuccessfully. So there's a bit of an admiration for each other on both sides. She led court-martial proceedings against Picard after he lost the Stargazer ship, and Picard says that she enjoyed the adversarial process. We're getting at the truth. You got it back. I don't know why you guys are so mad.
Mom.
Problems arise, however, when Admiral Nakamura orders Picard to help Commander Bruce Maddox to disassemble Data to determine how he functions. Maddox was a member of the admission committee of Starfleet Academy who evaluated Data when he applied for the admission. Maddox was also the only committee member who opposed Data's admission on account that he's not a sentient being. Maddox admits that he has not solved the puzzle of the positronic brain yet, which is the first step in creating an android. He wants to take Data apart, study his positronic brain with the aim to create a replica of the same. He does not have convincing answers to the problems he might encounter in his experiments, so Data expresses doubts about Maddox's likelihood of success, and he refuses to undergo the procedure.
You don't want your doctor saying, we'll figure it out. You just these are not words that you want your doctor
I just
to say.
know I could fix it if I could just get in there.
If I could just look, could I just
take it apart? I'll get it.
Honestly, that's how I approach a lot of stuff, though. Like, I know I could fix it if I could just get my hands on it, you know? I'm a very tactile learner. So Maddox, chess player, anticipated this and has orders ready to transfer Data under his command at Starbase 173. Picard speaks to Data in private and asks him to consider the possibility that Maddox might succeed and spawn an entire race of cybernetic beings. Data brings up just the best point that Geordi's prosthetic eyes are far superior to human eyes, yet human officers are not required to get those implants. And Picard says, yeah, I guess. Yeah. And I guess this just shows that his rights are limited precisely because he is just not a human. So Picard goes to Captain Philippa. I know that's not her name. I'm going to keep calling her that. For help.
No, it is.
And she had...
LaVue.
Yeah, but Philippa is so much more fun to say.
Not arguing.
Picard goes to Philippa for help, and she advises Picard that Data should resign his commission. Data resigns and starts packing his bags because he likes to have stuff. What kind of android likes to have stuff? Maddox is bitter over this, and Judge Judy go to court over Data's resignation. Data soon finds himself at the center of a judicial inquiry to determine if he is just a machine and a piece of property, or a sentient being who has the right to make his own decisions. Maddox argues that the computer of the Enterprise would not be allowed to refuse a refit, and so why should Data be allowed to refuse this?
But the computer of the Enterprise didn't voluntarily join Starfleet.
You should be in the courtroom, Kerry.
I should have been.
So Philippa's initial research of the law supports Maddox, and Picard decides to challenge her ruling, and she now has to organize a whole hearing. She finds herself sitting in judgment with Captain Picard, defending Data's claim against Commander Riker, who now Commander Riker is forced to present opposing arguments. And Riker is like, I don't want to do that. He is my friend. And Philip is like, okay, and I have no choice. If you don't do this, I have no choice but to send him away. And so Riker is like, fine, I'll do it, but I'm not happy about it.
And she even says, if I even catch a hint that you're going easy, you're in the brig, you know.
We're done. We're done here.
She calls Data a toaster, and was happy to hand him over to Maddox. And I'm like, do we still have toasters in whatever year this is?
Some technology is perfect, you know.
Her great-great-grandfather was an antiques collector, and they had this thing that's been passed down through the family for generations. It sits on her shelf next to her medals and awards
Bread.
and
Do you
pictures of her
remember
old
bread?
crews.
Riker starts his arguments by stating that Data is an android made by a human. He has abilities that no human possesses, and he also turns off Data in front of the court because he spent some time doing his research. He pulls up all of the schematics related to Data, and therefore he knows how to turn him off.
Did you see the look in his face when he saw that, though? Because he finds he's doing that one look, and he's like, ooh. Oh.
He was so sad about it.
It's like, oh, this is good.
The look in his face, like, I found something new.
Oh, that's cool. Oh, that's shitty. Oh.
Picard devastated by Riker's arguments, right? Because Riker crushing it. His probably second choice school was law school, right? But he made it into Starfleet. So Picard, devastated, goes to 10 Forward to meet our friend Whoopi Goldberg to provide some wisdom. And
where everybody knows your name.
She helps Picard realize that if you remove choice, Data is a slave. And Picard goes, ooh.
Preach it, sister.
Okay.
Preach. She's like, not today, colonizer.
Again, today's February 1st. Happy Black History Month, everybody.
Thank you very much. Preach it, Diana.
Picard goes back to court and proves that Data is sentient. Data admits he was intimate with Tasha, to which everybody's reaction in the room is like, I'm sorry, what?
She did what with a toaster?
He has sentiments and memories, and he feels emotions. He is intelligent and self-aware and conscious, and thousands of Datas will be erased. Picard makes this fantastic argument of like, is not our purpose to seek out new life in the universe? Here it is. Let's explore this, right? And I was like, oh, tear falling down my cheek. That was just such a killer argument, Picard. And if cybernetics do not have a choice, they will essentially be slaves. And so Philippa has no choice truly to be like, okay, you have the right to choose, my friend. And
Mr. Riker, I would have given you this case if it wasn't February 1st. I would have.
Well, and that's the thing too. Riker later, when he's talking to Data, he's like, he's not sorry that he had to argue against Data, right? He's like, he admits, I almost won that. I was this close to winning that. You're lucky, my friend. And it's cute. It's again, it's considered one of the best episodes of Star Trek, right? Because it considers, it has one of those philosophic angles, right, about what makes a human a human.
Well, yes, and Whoopi Goldberg's speech, Picard's closing speech, they're just so well written. Riker's even, written and performed. It's just terrific. Yeah.
But we also get more nuggets, like Kerry was saying. Like we get Picard and Philippa had a relationship before she court-martialed him, and she's like, it makes something like it makes the universe right to know that you're out there, that you're still being a pompous ass, but you're still sexy. I'm just kind of like, and you see Picard almost blush a little bit.
He does
like, oh, and then at the end of it, he's like, dinner, and she's like, are you buying? He's like, oh yeah, I'm buying. I'm like,
you
all right.
buying in a post-capitalist society where money, it's definitely more of a colloquialism than anything.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
I understand, but
still,
come on.
Picard's got a dinner date. He's got some shore leave coming. Just saying.
Does this space restaurant take Discovery card?
Take her to the holodeck, to that Parisian cafe where he ghosts all of his ex-lovers.
Yes.
One other piece of trivia, author Melinda M. Snodgrass originally intended Data to swim in the opening scene to illustrate that theory and practice are quite different and that Data has difficulty processing this. The producers found it difficult to find a public swimming pool that they could use on their budget and also had no time in their shooting schedule to find a way to maintain Data's makeup when swimming. So she was asked to find a different activity for the opening, coming up with the iconic poker game.
Mm-hmm.
And we got O'Brien in the poker game.
We did.
Yes.
Which was great. And we won't see Data in the water until, I think, Insurrection, right?
I think you are correct.
Because he doesn't even swim. He just walks on the bottom of the lake, and then suddenly when he needs to come up, he just kind of inflates himself somehow. And it pops up like a buoy,
The last episode I'm going to just kind of, I guess, mention the Dauphin. I'm never not going to know how to pronounce that word correctly. Wesley falls for the young future leader of Daled 4, unaware of just how dangerous the girl's protective and overly restrictive guardian can be.
Not on my watch.
Literally, there's nothing I want to say about this episode because all it is, Wesley meets teenage girl his own age, a wooga. She turns out to be not what she appears to be, and her companion protector appears to be a short, stout little woman, transforms into like a Bigfoot type creature, right? And she's very protective of Celia is her name. And it's just a classic story of boy meets girl. Girl can't necessarily participate in everyday activities because she's special. Wesley breaks rules, takes her to the holodeck, shows her the universe, has his first kiss, Will Wheaton's first on-screen kiss. This episode is just Wesley learning how to talk to girls, and I don't care for it. Okay,
it's not memorable. It's
It's there. And I'm sorry if this is one of your favorite episodes. I'm not going to talk about it because, one, I'm trying to keep these episodes under an hour. And two, this is just Wesley being Wesley and whatever. There's one standout moment from this episode, and it's when Wesley goes to 10 Forward for wisdom, of course. He's talking to Riker, of all people, about how to talk to girls.
Oh, this is a good scene, yeah.
And Riker, Guinan, can I get your help with something? She sits down, and they have the hottest exchange possible.
Oh, yes. It's incredibly hot. I mean, and I couldn't tell. This is how good they are. I couldn't tell whether they were just playing along.
Right.
Or maybe there was something there,
The vibe I got was that Guinan loves to yes and she was having the time of her life doing this with Riker.
You may be right. I'll bet Guinan is one of those that she, like Riker, plays along.
Yes. Oh God, to be friends. It's get you guys some friends who will yes and every bit that you try to do. It's one of the best gifts you can give yourself. But and there's a moment where Wesley tries to interrupt and Guinan is like, shut up.
Shut up, this is good. This is happening right now.
So if anything, just look up that clip.
Yeah, that's all you need with this episode is that
maybe
clip.
I'll drop it in at the end of this episode because it's truly so far one of my favorite moments in Next Gen. It's just like bing bong, bing bong. Every line is such a banger, and I'm like, I cannot believe this is happening in front of my eyes right now.
But, just think for 1988 or 89 eyes, just like this is on TV. We're not paying for this.
Nicely.
Yeah,
syndication.
It's always how.
What the what?
It's always how are you, and never. I dream of a galaxy where your eyes are the stars and the universe worships the night. Come on, men, get it together.
Hey, men, why can't you flirt like this?
God, yeah, just that's all. That's all.
No, that was. I love that scene because Guinan was giving it as good as she was getting it. Just terrific.
Chef's kiss. I'll drop in the clip after this episode because it is absolute perfection. But that's 6 through 10, season 2 of The Next Generation. Next week we are going to talk about Contagion, The Royale. Oh my God, The Royale is one of my favorite episodes. Times Squared, The Icarus Factor, and Pen Pals. But until then, any other opinions, things to say about these episodes that we have talked about today?
About the ones that we've talked about today, no. But you said the Icarus Factor, and here is a Lee George Cadeism. He created the title of that episode before that episode ever aired. Because we had a running gag about the titles of Star Trek episodes. And he always says, whenever I can't remember, and we were talking about the classic series, whenever I can't remember the name of an episode, I just say the Icarus Factor. It was called the Icarus Factor.
Absolutely an original series episode title.
What was that episode? The Icarus Factor. That's what it was.
But even better, you guys, it's about Riker's estranged Papa. So we get Papa Riker. We get Daddy Issues Riker. Ooh.
That's coming up. My thoughts on season 2 so far is like, I think they figured out the show. You know? I think they finally figured it out.
Yeah, it's.
They still don't have
excited.
quite the budget they're looking for, though.
That's true.
No, I'm excited to get to the 90s. I know right now we're in 1988, but I'm excited to get into the 90s to see what kind of set dressing, because I'm a sucker for like set dressing and costumes and seeing how things evolve through time, right? It's like Friends is such an awesome example of this because you follow it from the early 90s into the early 2000s and watching, you know, how culture shifts through fashion and set dressing. I think that's so fascinating. So really excited to keep going.
Have you not seen season 3 Star Trek?
No.
Next Gen?
No. I've only gotten I think after I think once we finish next week's episode with Pen Pals, I think that's where I left off with my next gen watch.
Okay.
So after that, it's all brand new to me.
So I'm slightly ahead of you then.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So until then, we will just keep going where no man's gone before, but a lot of men have gone before. Thanks, everybody.